Right now, there's a nationwide push for reparations, and there's more momentum going towards reparations today than there has been in the past 60 years. That's something that I'm really happy to see. However, one thing I've noticed is there is a lot of disingenuous pushback. There's some people from the dominant society who act like they support black people, but then they're not for reparations. Now, this is nothing new. We can go back to the 60s and hear from Martin Luther King what he thinks about seeing this all too familiar phenomenon. Check this out.
Do you think white people in this country, and I'm talking about non-segregationists, people devoid or thinking they're devoid of racism, do you have any idea of what they want the Negro to be in America?
Well, it depends on the level that we are talking here, because I think you have to make a distinction between the people who are genuinely and absolutely committed in the white community on the question of racial equality. And I must confess that I think they're in a very small minority. I think the vast majority of white Americans will go but so far. It's a kind of installment plan for equality, and they are always looking for an excuse to go but so far.
It's unfortunate that people who call themselves supporters and allies of foundational black Americans aren't more verbal, aren't more outspoken about their support for reparations. Reparations is becoming, if it isn't already, a litmus test to show your support for the black Americans, for foundational black Americans. If you say you support foundational black Americans, if you say, Black Lives Matter, those are easy things to say. But the real test is, do you support reparations? If you do not support reparations, but Black Lives Matter, your Black Lives Matter, your calls for support are hollow. The litmus test is, do you support reparations? Yes or no? Because that's really putting your money where your mouth is. That's what really matters the most. And I think that we're starting to see more and more pushback because it's becoming a topic that you can't just ignore. Before, they used to want to ignore the topic of reparations. But we as foundational black Americans are not letting the conversation die. We're strongly supporting it continuously, and we're staying on code, and we're not letting it go. So with that being said, people are having to pick a side, having to choose a side. I think one of the main things that is difficult for people to understand is the fact that everyone will not qualify for reparations. Only the foundational black Americans, those who descended from slaves, those who were here before 1900s, back in the 1800s, 1700s, like my family, would qualify. Now, you might ask, why is that? Immigrants, there are black immigrants who come over from Africa. Why don't they deserve reparations? Well, let me not answer that. Let's hear from Martin Luther King. Check this out.
It seems to me that white America must see that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That is one thing that other immigrant groups haven't had to face. The other thing is that the color became a stigma. American society made the Negro's color a stigma, and that can never be overlooked. So I think these things are absolutely necessary. The other thing is that America freed the slaves in 1863 through the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, but gave the slaves no land or nothing in reality, and as a matter of fact, to get started on. At the same time, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give the white peasants from Europe an economic base. and yet it refused to give its black peasants from Africa who came here involuntarily in chains and had worked free for 244 years any kind of economic base. And so emancipation for the Negro was really freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without food to eat or land to cultivate, and therefore it was freedom and famine at the same time. And when white Americans tell the Negro to lift himself by his own bootstraps, they don't look over the legacy of slavery and segregation. I believe we ought to do all we can and seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps, but it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And many Negroes, by the thousands and millions, have been left bootless as a result of all of these years of oppression and as a result of a society that deliberately made his color a stigma and something worthless and degrading.
So you made it all the way to the end of the video, but you haven't hit the like button yet. Come on now. You're cheating me, you're cheating yourself. Go ahead, hit the like button. And while you're at it, you might as well smash the subscribe button so you can get notifications every time I drop a video. I make a video every day, a different topic, a different subject. They're all interesting, so you can check them all out by hitting the subscribe button and setting your notifications to all so you get an alert when I drop a video. There you go.